Today we're going to be talking about absolute value. And if we look at absolute value is the distance from zero. Okay, so if we have our number line here and we have a number line with positive numbers to the right and negative numbers to the left, our positive numbers would be 6 and -6. So each mark is representing as 1. And so when we talk about absolute value, we're talking about the distance to 0. Okay? And if the number, let's say we have -6, what is the distance from 0? It is 6. And if we look at +6, the distance from 0 is also 6. So when we talk about absolute value, it has a line. This is how you represent absolute value, a line on each side. So if we have the absolute value of -6, the distance from 0 is 6. If we have the absolute value of +6, it is also 6. So now that we're talking about absolute value, we can talk about how to solve absolute value. And so for instance, if we have an absolute value of x plus 4 is equal to 6. Okay, what we first want to do is make sure that we isolate the absolute value. Okay, we want to make sure that the absolute value right here is by itself on one side of the equal sign and everything else is on the other side. Once we have it isolated, then to get rid of the absolute value, because we're talking the distance from 0, we need to have both the positive and negatives. So to get rid of our absolute value, we're going to go x plus 4 is equal to 6, and x plus 4 is equal to -6. Now that we have that, notice the absolute value signs go away, and we can then solve two equations because we're going to have two answers anytime we have an absolute value. So we can now solve for x and subtract 4 from both sides, and we get x is equal to 2. Now again, subtract 4 from both sides, and we have x is equal to -10. So those are both of our answers. So now if we want to check it to see if it works, we can put it back up into our equation. And we can go absolute value, we have -10 plus 4 is equal to 6, and -10 plus 4 is -6, and the absolute value of -6 is 6. So yes, they are equal, and now we can put in 2, absolute value of 2 plus 4 is equal to 6, and we have the absolute value of 6 is 6, and the absolute value of 6 is 6, which is equal to 6. So yes, they both work in our absolute value equation. So now every time we do this, we must have two equations. So let's try another. This is example 2. If we have the absolute value of 3x plus 6 equals 12. To do this, we need to separate it into two equations. So we're going to have 3x plus 6 is equal to 12, and 3x plus 6 is equal to -12. Notice that the absolute value is already isolated, so it means it's by itself on one side of the equal sign and everything else is on the other. So then we can split it up into two equations. Now solve for x. So subtract 6 from both sides, subtract 6 from both sides, and we get 3x is equal to 6, divide by 3, x is equal to 2. Do the same thing over here. We get 3x is equal to -18, divide by 3, x is equal to -6. So notice our numbers are a little bit different. We have a 2 and a -6. So when you plug them back into your equation, we can test that out and go absolute value of 3 times -6 plus 6 is equal to 12. So we have -18 plus 6, and -18 plus 6 is -12. So the absolute value of -12 is 12. Now if we try it again, I'll put it right here. Let's erase this. We have the absolute value of 3 times 2 plus 6 is equal to 12. So then we go 6 plus 6 is equal to 12, and 6 plus 6 is 12. The absolute value of 12 is 12. So notice that they both work. All right, I would like you to try the next one on your own. Pause the video and see if you can solve it. Make sure you break it up into the positive and the negative equation and solve it, and then push play, and you can then check your work. So we have example 3. We have absolute value of f plus 5 is equal to 17. We have to break it up into the positives. So we have f plus 5 in absolute value is equal to 17. Oops, sorry, without the absolute value sign. Let's just rewrite that. F plus 5. And then we have f plus 5 is equal to -17. Okay, solve it. Subtract 5 from both sides. We get f is equal to 12. And then subtract 5 from both sides. We get f is equal to -22. Okay, checking your work, putting it in, we have -22 plus 5 in the absolute value is equal to 17, and -22 plus 5 is -17. And absolute value of -17 is 17. So that works. And then if we check it over here, we put in 12 plus 15, or sorry, 12 plus 5 in the absolute value is equal to 17. 12 plus 5 is 17 in the absolute value, and the absolute value of 17 is 17. So they both work. So when you're solving this, to help you to decide if it is correct, it is really important to check your work, plugging in the numbers, figuring out where it is and how to solve this.